So the first question is, as a writing team, Debra, how did you and Carl organize your collaborations? Did you assign your scenes or write in tandem? What was your process as a team?
So once we knew the story, we created the outline, and we would simply start with Act 1 and write out what the scenes were going to be, and then we would pick our favorites. I feel comfortable doing this particular scene. You feel comfortable doing that. We would write it and then give it to the other person to rewrite. So it worked out really well because there's a little bit of both of us in every single scene. And Carl was really big on negotiating. So if he didn't like one joke, it would be, okay, I'll give you this if you give me that. And that's how that worked out. So, before we go further, I just want to wish Nancy Morris a happy birthday. Her birthday's tomorrow.
Oh, happy birthday, Nancy.
Happy birthday, Nancy.
Okay.
So just to rewind a little bit, sorry for the technical difficulties, everybody. But my name is Joy Choden, and I am the founder of the Moonlighting Reunion Campaign and the Moonlighting DVD Campaign. And I have with me this evening Debra Frank, one of the writers of the Dream Sequence Always Rings Twice, one of the most popular acclaimed Moonlighting episodes, and Neil Mandelberg, editor of Moonlighting. And Neil, you won the Emmy for editing for that episode, didn't you?
Yes.
And you were nominated, correct, Debra, for that episode?
Yes. We had 16 nominations, and Neil was the only one who won. And I think Peter should have won.
I thought a bunch more should have won.
Oh, well, yeah. Should have won everything.
I was a little surprised.
There's
always a little politics and everything that happens, Yeah. But yes, I thought that you guys and Peter should have been the top notch of it. I even would have put Jerry up there. It should have absolutely had it. Because he gave us film noir in the middle of a comedy, which is so hard to do successfully, let alone just do. So...
and the lighting and everything that you had to do, and tracking down the cameras and getting special film, and it involved a lot.
Yes,
it involved quite a bit. Oh, you asked who won. Okay, so this is an interesting story. After the Dream Sequence aired, Chick, who used to work on Saint Elsewhere, got a call from one of the people at Saint Elsewhere, and he said, "Oh, they like the black and white so much, they're going to do their own version of a black and white episode," and that's the one that won.
Gotcha. Interesting.
And it was, their show was very dramatic and very good.
Yeah, but it was pretty procedural, right? I mean, Moonlighting was so out of the box. It was so different. And they didn't know, I understand it, in the award shows, they didn't know what category to put it in, right? Because it was because it was a dramedy.
There had never been an hour comedy before, and they didn't have dramedies then.
And that may have affected why we didn't win many more on that episode, because we were bunched with shows that really were very different than us.
Yeah, and it really wasn't fair. And I heard that Glenn was very, very angry when he came in the next day. He talks about that in the Moonlighting the DVD commentaries. So, okay, so who came up with the concept?
I have to say, he sent us flowers
afterwards,
and with a note that said, "You'll always be a winner with me."
How sweet.
Oh, that's nice.
Very nice. Very nice.
That's very nice. Who came up with, Debra, the concept of the episode? When you and Carl conceived this idea, did you imagine it in black and white? And was that really a big influence on the storytelling for the script? And how do you think that the telling of the story would be impacted if it was in color?
Okay. There's a lot there.
Yeah.
So actually, we came up with the idea because we were pitching to a different show. So Carl and I were freelance writers, which meant that we would go to various studios, various shows, and we would pitch 3 to 5 ideas trying to get an assignment. And usually there would be something like 3 assignments available, but they'd be seeing like 8 or 10 writers. So you wanted your idea to pop. You wanted it to be something special. And we were going in for the show. I think it was Crazy Like a Fox. And that was a father-son dual detective show. And we kind of came up with this idea of showing the son as a little boy. And in going back, doing that, we created, we'd go back to the 40s when he's a little boy and do that in black and white. And so we pitched it to them, and they said, because we were very young at the time, and they said, you guys are not going to make it in the business. You can't do things like that. There's a formula. And so we didn't get an assignment, and we went in with other things, but we didn't get an assignment. But we liked that so much that we were just tailoring the black and white show for other shows, the black and white episode for other shows. So when we went in and pitched it to Glenn, we were shocked. We pitched it to him. We're sitting there. We're waiting for him to tell us, you're never going to work in the business, blah, blah, blah. And he was silent for a moment. And there was this long pause. And he said, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do Maddie's dream sequence like MGM glossy. And we're going to do David's in the Warner Brothers grainy film noir. And it'll be fabulous. So yes, we did have that idea before. Glenn was the only one who saw it and added something to it. And what else? Would it work in color? I don't think it would have worked as well, because film noir, there's a tone to it, and it's black and white, and there's a tone to it. And I think if it had been in color, it would have looked like they were play acting.
Yeah.
Do you agree, Neil?
Absolutely. It's a genre era thing. Viewers will go right to something with that, even if it's just telling them that this is in the past and it's old style. And then you look at the wardrobe and it just fits. It just fits. And I'm not sure if our viewers back then understood the connection to film noir and somebody like Howard Hawks that really drove the show in a lot of ways, because Sybil, Maddie, was exactly the Hawksian woman that Howard Hawks delivered in his movies. Katharine Hepburn, Lauren Bacall.
Yes,
I can't remember the rest because I'm old, but there's a lot of them. Yeah, it was very special. It was a great idea because nobody had done it, and you guys did it so successfully. And I love the contradiction from both their dreams. It was just perfect. And the coloring, you mentioned it, Debra. I didn't even see that much of the difference in the way we color corrected it. But by your explanation, I certainly get why David's dream was the film noir grainy. And it fit perfectly. Perfectly.
Thank you.
What was the most fun thing about writing that episode with Carl, Debra?
Oh, it has to be David's dream, that dream sequence. Because after we got the assignment, we went to Blockbuster and just rented everything we could, went to our separate homes and just watched them. And we got together to talk about it. And when we were doing David's, it was like we just pulled every cliche that we could, which is why we have, the newspaper. Did the governor call? The governor didn't call. And walking with the signs going over his head, his face, and all of that. Oh, and the bartender. One bit that always played was the guys would go into a bar and they would talk to the bartender. Well, since the film noir the protagonist had this sort of narrator going, which was his thought. We thought, well, that would be funny if we had the narrator just talking to the bartender. So it was just so much fun coming up with that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I had forgotten the line about these signs around my head. Made me laugh out loud last night. I just forgot that line existed. I was like, oh my God, how perfect this was. It just made everybody aware that we are not in reality. Enjoy yourself, sit back.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah.
I'm heading out.
Okay. Yeah, there was some spoofs on, noir in there, like with the signs flying over his head and him commenting on it. Yeah.
And if you look at the camera angles, they fit that style of filmmaking as well. The pulling away from David while he's playing, from Bruce while he's playing, as opposed to pushing in, was definitely to me a callback, because that was a way to establish something in a different way.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's how I saw it. I loved it. I thought Peter Werner was wonderful on the set because he included them. Sybil, Bruce and Sybil really embraced playing somebody other than David and Maddie. I saw that in their eyes. They were locked in. Mm-hmm. And I think it helped them lock into each other, but separately they were locked in. Like, that's why I thought in The Taming of the Shrew, they both loved playing somebody other than the characters they were playing every single day. Who wouldn't?
Exactly. And that was part of our selling point when we pitched it to Glenn, is that Sybil and Bruce would get to play 3 different characters. They'd be playing David and Maddie, and then they would be playing, 2 versions of Rita and Zach. So you have one where, she's this sweet, innocent woman, and he's this cat. And then you have the other where he's sort of, a victim, and she's this femme fatale. So, and you really see it in Sybil with both the songs.
Love those songs. And she did wonderfully in those. She was great. She was absolutely great. I think she's always loved performing. Mm-hmm. And again, got a real kick out of being able to do that.
Mm-hmm. Now we should go to the hair flip question, because Neil would know the answer to that.
It was...
Yeah. Was the hair flip that Sybil did while singing in David's Dream scripted, or was it Sybil's idea?
Well, I think it was scripted. Either way, it was planned because it was a perfect transition. It was a time jump. We went from rehearsal to on-stage show, and it was beautiful. I believe you guys scripted it, from my memory. Or maybe the direction.
Maybe it was Peter.
Maybe Peter took that in the direction and translated into, let's shoot it this way so I can make the direct cut without going back to another setup shot. Mm-hmm. And it was absolutely perfect because we were in close-up, and the hair flip just revealed this absolutely beautiful woman.
Exactly.
Who looked even more beautiful than she did in the rehearsal scene. So it was just like, wow. Yeah, it was pretty great.
It's kind of a tribute to Rita Hayworth, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That I wouldn't remember. I just know that it was planned and it was perfect.
I have a question of my own. With the husband that the Maddie character, the Rita character is married to in both of the dream sequences. He's a doormat in Maddie's dream, and he's abusive in David's.
Yes.
Where did that come from? Because I find it very interesting that that's kind of like how they both imagine, the Maddie character, Maddie and David imagining who would be married to Maddie. Yeah.
Well, in the beginning, when we had the discussion or argument in the car, and she's saying, "Oh, it's so sad that an innocent person died because she fell in love with the wrong guy," and he's saying, whatever the line was, it's like, well, what if it was the right guy and the wrong girl? Right. Everything they were saying there was the setup for what the dream was going to be. So it was just a device there and I have to say, when it comes, everybody has asked who committed the murders. I have no idea. We never thought to think that through because we were just using it as a device. And Glenn always said, who cares about the mystery? Nobody cares about the mystery. It's just about David and Maddie's relationship.
Right. And let's not forget the last two lines in it when they're doing the same thing he did with the bartender, where neither of them is speaking.
Exactly.
And she called him an animal in her head, and he called her a sexist, if I remember right. The door's closed. The episode is over. That was necessary. That's just part of their relationship. So if you'd solved anything, I don't think you'd had the opportunity to do that.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. Yeah.
And nobody cared. Nobody cared.
Nobody. And the interesting thing is that they were both vindicated. So when they were having that scene, they were both vindicated because in her dream, she
went with Dad to her soccer. I should tell something. You can come sit here, but you have to be quiet. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that was it. They were both, vindicated because they won in each of their dreams.
And look, I don't know how many times we did it, but them going to their office and slamming the doors still makes me smile. And I love when we cut to Elise during it because she's just the perfect bridge. She just brings a smile to your face and laugh to your heart. I love Elise. I love Curtis. I loved all of them. I forget their names. Forgive me, but it was a great supporting cast in that office because they didn't get to do much, but you knew who they were because so much played through them in the office. It was really pretty cool.
Well, a lot of it was just reactions to, the way that their body language and the reactions on their face and their ooh or whatever silly little moments that they got to speak. Yeah.
You can't not laugh when Elise says, "Hi, Miss Hayes. Bye, Miss Hayes," in the same breath.
Yeah.
You can't not laugh. She was just so special at it. And fantastic. I think her and Curtis are I think they're both doing some theater or have done in New York.
Together?
Oh, really?
No, I know that Elise has done some theater. She moved to New York years ago.
Yeah.
I can't say more because I'd be wrong. I'd be guessing. I think Curtis went to New York and started doing some other stuff too.
I actually ran into Curtis one time in Midtown Manhattan years ago. So I know he definitely. I think he was. That was right around the time that the nerd reality show that he was doing, the Revenge of the Nerds reality show that he was doing. He was in town back then. So, so regarding the dialogue for the episode, Debra, what parts were really your idea and what parts were Carl's inspiration?
Well, as I mentioned, they were both of. It was always us together because we were always rewriting each other. So we both wrote, because a lot of people asked me, did you write Maddie's version and did Carl write David's? And it's no, we both did. And like I said, we had more fun writing his version, Zach's version. But I do have to say that the scene when he's sitting at the window and he's playing the horn and he does that whole thing about, and I look good, whatever. Carl went, I don't know if that's going to play. I don't know if that's going to play because there's always such a fine line between, something working and being good or something being too stupid. So there's always that fine line. So I negotiated that. It's like, okay, well, I'll give you this if you give me that. And that's how that got in.
And what did he get for that?
I can't remember.
Okay.
He got something. Trust me. He got one of his lines or bits.
Okay. And in David's dream, was Rita meant as a great character who was trying to get out of a bad situation, or was she purely manipulating Zach? And in Maddie's dream, was Zach meant to have a sinister agenda from the beginning, or did he fall so hard for Rita he couldn't help himself but want to get rid of her? Nasty husband.
Well, okay, I think both. In David's dream, because I have the question right here, was Rita meant as a both, because she brought up the only way to get rid of Jerry is to get rid of Jerry. And so that was in David's dream, that he, it was a bad situation. In Maddie's dream, I don't think it was, it wasn't an agenda. I mean, I think that he was a cad. I mean, he knew her for an hour or whatever the rehearsal time was, and he hit on her right away. And he was playing her, you're looking married, you're looking settled, da, 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 da. So he was just playing her. And he probably went from town to town, doing things like that. And somebody else had asked about the moan before he kisses Rita when she's against the wall. That wasn't scripted. So that was Sybil.
That was Sybil.
It was Sybil. Or it was Peter directing them. Maybe it came out when they were, rehearsing, but that was not in. And also in David's version of it, is it David's? Rita has the black eye.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he doesn't want to do it. But when he sees that she's in this abusive relationship, then okay, I'll do it. So it was both. She was manipulating him, and she did want to get out of a bad situation.
And I was surprised that in all the questions I've had about that show over the years, that nobody asked whether Rita just put that stuff on her eye to get him going, or if she was really hit. Nobody's questioned that, which is kind of interesting, knowing how aggressive that Rita was.
Mm-hmm.
But I liked that it was just left unreacted to. Everybody believed what she brought, which is, I think a testament to what she did on camera.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've had people say to me that I've watched it with, like, oh, she did that to herself.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's why we set up the husband, Jack Bannon, to kind of yell and be abusive. I'll be home when I'm home,
Right, but we never saw him raise his hand.
Yes.
So people like me that don't like to believe that people are that violent.
Yes.
I think there are people that will. I saw it that way when I was watching it last night. I went, that's an interesting question. Looking at her eye. Because again, it's just that reverse manipulation from the other dream. And it could have been any of it.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah, this is somewhat of a similar question. Also, are both dreams intended to show different memories, interpretations of the same truth, or do you see them as separate versions of events? Who committed the murders? There's the part with the who committed the murders. But the separate truths.
Right. Wait, I have a note about that. I'm looking for that question. I numbered them, so I have them all out of order. So where is that? Where does it start?
Well, I kind of combined some questions on my document.
Okay.
So I'm not sure because I'm working off of a Google Doc here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, we set up the true events in the car. In the club, when they're saying a man was murdered, she was a singer, he was a trumpet player, and they both, and Maddie says, who did it? And he said they both went to the electric chair, each of them saying it was the other person. So it was true events that they were basing that on. So in a way, I guess it was their interpretation, she interpreted that it was him, and he, the other, thought it was her.
And they both dreamt what made them right. If you go straight to it.
Yeah.
They like being right. That we definitely got out of watching.
Exactly. Yeah. No, they like being right.
Yep. Debra, do you let me see, or does she have a particular affinity for? Do you have a particular affinity for film noir? And Did you specifically ask to write this episode? I know that you pitched it to Glenn, obviously, or did you already have it in mind to present it to the writers, the producers? How was it decided which writers would pen which the episode? I mean, but you pitched it to Glenn, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Well, every writer had to come up with their own ideas.
mm-hmm.
And when you came up with your own ideas, you had a beginning, a middle, and an end. So he could see what the episode would be. So every writer had to come up with something. What was the first part?
Do you feel you have like a real love for film noir?
Well,
Like,
I did at the time,
yeah.
because it was so much fun. But I haven't seen any movies like that for a while. But I did at the time. Yeah.
Yeah, I've always enjoyed the film noir, genre. I used to watch I grew up watching old movies with my grandmother, so
Oh, that's
I had a like Mildred Pierce. That's like classic film noir. Okay, let's see. How was the mood on the set when filming the two iconic dream sequences? Did the cameras melt?
Well,
How many takes? What?
That would be to Neil.
Yeah, this is more for Neil because he was on the set a lot more. How many takes between Rita, Sybil, and Zach Bruce to get those sexy scenes shot, Neil?
I certainly can't remember how many, but what I can tell you that the atmosphere that we had was extraordinary. Everybody on the set was exciting because we didn't know what we were going to get when they said action. That was what was so special about the two of them. They didn't change your dialogue. They manipulated it to fit who they were and what they were saying. But basically, it was exciting to see what you were going to get. Like the moan. I wasn't there. I was there when they shot it, but I wasn't close enough to know what kind of conversation Peter had with them. But Peter was kind of getting together with them before we shot most setups. And I think they got it. They were just having so much fun. So that was pretty straightforward. As far as takes, this was a day of film. And the network didn't like when you spent so much money printing so many takes. So if we went beyond whatever their acceptable amount of tries were, we just changed a letter in front of the number. So if we were at, 7 Apple take 6, we went to 7 Baker take 1. Because otherwise the network's going to call and say, why'd you need that 7th take? So, some shots more than others. But in the days of film, you rarely went beyond 5 unless you had some real issues and were changing things. But they got it so quickly. These guys, Rita and Zach, they were so easy for these two. It wasn't really a stretch. It was just part of who they both wanted to be. And this was all new to David, so the excitement in him was palpable.
And this kind of continues with what you're saying, Neil. Did Bruce and Sybil both have a preference on which of those characters, which of the dream sequence versions of their characters, that they liked better to portray in terms of those two versions?
I mean, I go to Debra with that, but my response would be, whatever dream made them right is the one that they prioritized. I can't see any other way. As far as I actually enjoyed the first dream more than the second. Because I kind of leaned with them that it's the guy that would probably do the murder. Sorry. Only because of that is that my own interpretation was such that was probably the more correct one. If I had to pick who was guilty, I'd go after Zach.
Oh.
I don't know why. Maybe because it was counter to Maddie and David, because she was always the aggressor in their relationship. So maybe I just decided to go counter and give her a break.
Oh.
I don't remember. I just know how I responded then. But I thought that David's dream was more exciting for the viewers because just that beat of him playing 3 different instruments within 10 seconds just told you so much about the character they've created here that,
Yeah.
it was wonderful. It was wonderful.
Absolutely. Orson Welles visited the set before he shot his scene. What do you remember about that? And how much of the filming were you able to watch? And what was your favorite? Like, what were your favorite parts? Do you remember your memories of that?
Well, with Orson Welles, I know all the writers were there, and I brought a camera that day because we didn't have, phones and all of that. So I brought a camera and I brought my script, and I had him autograph my script.
How awesome.
Yes, and I have it here somewhere. I brought it out.
Awesome.
Carl gifted this to me, this notebook with our names engraved. And so here is the script, the autograph. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes.
That's awesome.
That is pretty special.
Yeah. Yeah. And when we had to evacuate 5 years ago for the fire, I realized I didn't bring this. So
gosh.
I know I'm going to have to put it in my pile of things to bring if we have to evacuate again.
God forbid.
I have to show you the picture of meeting Orson Welles. So I wanted to take a picture with him, and I asked if I could, and he said yes. So I walked over to give my camera to somebody, and when I walked back, all of the writers had surrounded him. So I'm in the back of the picture on my tippy toes, and you just see a little bit of me. And here's the picture.
Oh, that's great.
This one. Should I move it forward? Can you see it?
Yeah. Is that Jeff and Reno and Ron Osborne?
Jeff, Ron, Roger, director.
And Roger.
Right.
Yeah. Now, do you see me in there?
Yeah. You're in the back. Yes, I see you.
In the back on the left.
In the middle.
Side,
yes.
Yeah.
Is that Ron or Jeff? I forget which is which.
What was that?
I said you were behind. Is that Ron or Jeff on the left side? I can't tell.
Oh, so here. This is, I have to do it this way. Oh, I just snapped that. Okay, so wrong picture. Okay.
Right below it. There you go.
This is Roger. This is Jeff.
Okay, so it's Ron on the left who showed
and this is Ron, yes. Yeah.
Thank you
And
for sharing
I was not allowed on set. Only you writers and this crew. I did not get to be on set for Orson Welles because everybody in their family would have wanted to be there. But I had somebody on the crew find a way to let me know when they were done. And I went over and saw Orson Welles on his way to his car. And I got to introduce myself and say hello to him. It was really exciting. He was very kind, happy to say hello. I thanked him for what he did. And forgive this, the one memory I have was he was the widest human being I'd ever seen in my life to that point. Again, the largest as a human being, a legend. But what I remember was that, wow, that's one big man. And he was very sweet and very kind. And we lost him during that week because we aired on the 15th, and I think he passed away on the 10th of October, which is within a day or so, or maybe even the night we shot his footage. I'm forgetting exactly when he passed, but it was very near to when we shot his footage.
Yeah, we shot that on October 4th.
Okay.
I only remember
that within a week.
Yeah, I only remember that because it was my mom's birthday.
Oh, my mom's birthday is October 3rd.
Oh.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I want to hear more about your mom, but we'll talk about that later.
Yes. So
Okay.
yeah, it was pretty special and pretty sad when we lost him. But I look at it, I was like, oh my God, how special it was that the last bit of film, even though there were no cuts in his opening, the last bit of film he shot went through my moviola.
Oh.
And I carried that for years and years. I just thought that was wow, how special it was that I was in that place at that time. Yeah. Not to minimize the loss of him, but wow, to have been there for all of us. Orson Welles came to Moonlighting. We were still a new show.
And you know,
we had to have made some notice somewhere for him to agree to come do this. No
and you know,
question.
he didn't look sick at all.
He
Did you
looked
think
great.
so? He looked
No,
great.
he looked absolutely great.
Yeah.
And his timing was perfect in the way he delivered it. Just the little facial stuff. He was just extraordinary.
Well, and also Glenn directed that. And Glenn was so nervous he forgot to say action.
I remember that. I remember that. That was a pretty good moment.
What was Sybil Shepherd's favorite scene to film in the episode? Do you remember, Neil? And then it talks more about, again, how beautiful Sybil's voice is and how much the episode showcases her voice. And do you remember how many takes it took for her to do the 2 songs, to perform it and do those scenes with her performing?
Okay, well, basically the scene that she enjoyed the most, I would have to go by the moan and say that kiss was probably, because that was the first time they kissed on the show. And she let out a guttural piece on whether it was directed or not. It felt natural when she did it. So I'd have to guess at that, but I couldn't be sure. As far as the song, it was done to playback.
I think you're right.
It was done to playback, the song. So
yeah.
I don't think we did it more than a few times because she was great at it. It was really about camera if we redid it, is my guess.
And she looked absolutely beautiful in that episode.
I can't remember a moment in that show that she didn't. So
Yes. Yeah.
She did. Was the romantic scene with Rita using the ice cube meant to have the comical head bump with Bruce and when it hit the floor?
Okay, we didn't write that. Glenn put that in.
It was scripted because if you watch it, you see Bruce lean in a little too far for a gentle tap, as opposed to them actually bumping. So yes, if whoever determined to do it, it was planned when they rolled the camera. It had already been added in.
And a little bit more on that first kiss when he backs her up against the wall. The script said it's supposed to be the hottest, longest kiss on TV. So did it come out the way that you had hoped when you wrote it, Debra?
Well, I told that to somebody. Whoever it was, Lori or Noreen or somebody had asked, and I said it was the wildest. And I went back and I looked at the script, and it said the hungriest kiss. So, yeah.
I think it touched every one of the words you just used.
Yes.
It was pretty great.
Absolutely.
Well, I love the way Peter shot it from profile. I thought for me, the impact was great.
Yeah.
Because you got both of them without having to go overs, and it was just the way they came together was perfect. Just beautifully done.
Well, you got to see them kiss without it being Maddie and David. You got to go as far as you wanted without it, changing the dynamic of the character's arc and the show. But the audience got the satisfaction of getting to see Bruce and Sybil kiss.
Yes.
Do you feel as a female writer, Debra, especially with Maddie's voice, do you feel there was a difference between the male gaze versus the female gaze, and when it came to telling stories on Moonlighting, and especially with this episode?
Yeah, I think that exists. The writers that we worked with, Jeff, Ron, and Roger, are incredible writers and incredible people. So, but there is an experience as a woman that you don't experience as a man. And I think that played into it. In many shows, many of the episodes, I tried to soften her. And all of those scenes were taken out. They were just, or cut down, So, yeah, I mean, I remember in the Leprechaun show, Somewhere Under the Rainbow, she had this beautiful scene with that, that actress that was the leprechaun, and they just exchanged stories and relationship stories and talking, and they really connected, which is why later on when she makes a comment, if anybody's a leprechaun, it would be her. But that was just cut down to just a little teeny scene. And I didn't get the feeling that there was any reason for them to bond over that. So yeah, and I always tried to soften her because, well, she was kind of the straight man to Bruce. He got the jokes, he got the whole thing, blah, blah, blah. She was the straight one. And sometimes I felt that she was coming off a little shrill and I wanted to soften her. So I would say yes.
There's been a lot of discussion on our board about that Maddie's side of her background, especially of why she's so afraid to be in a relationship with David, was kind of left out. We got a lot more of the backstory on Bruce, that he was divorced and all of that. Are you aware that Glenn wanted to tell more of Maddie's backstory of, why she turned out the way she was?
Well, here's the deal. When we joined the staff, I asked Glenn, so what tell me the backstory of the characters. And he said, if I asked you out on a date and I told you where we were going and what we were going to do, it wouldn't be very exciting. But if I asked you out on a date and you didn't know what was going to happen, it would be exciting. So he said, so we will discover the characters, and if they're married or whatever, we'll discover that as we write it. And that's basically how it came about.
Okay.
And
so
we had the luxury. We had the luxury of, other than their relationship, there were standalone episodes. So you guys had the luxury of bringing that up whenever it worked for the story you're now taking us to.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The chemistry between Bruce and Sybil it's what dreams are made of. It's unmatched. It's the best I've ever seen. How much of it was ad-libbed in terms of their passionate gazes and the way that they interacted with each other? Was it a lot of it was them, or was it directed and written?
Well, there was no ad-libbing. Glenn would not allow that.
Right.
So if something was being ad-libbed, somebody got on the phone to him and told him, and he was down on the set immediately.
Right.
So that happened. What was the beginning?
The gazes.
Well, basically the chemistry and
well, you know what? In the scripts, we wrote a lot. They have their names, and then it's a parenthetical of their attitudes and what's happening, and then it's the dialogue. And our scripts ran 94 pages. And part of that was, that you have this much room when you're doing the stage direction, their attitudes. And all of that was written. So it was there for the director, and it was there for the actors. And if Glenn didn't like it, he would change it.
And just to throw a little nod to the writers, in general, in those days, we measured minutes per page. Mm-hmm. And most shows average in the vicinity of 50 seconds per page. And Moonlighting, I don't think we ever got over 30. So for a 1 hour episode, which at that time I think was 48 minutes in length, I'm guessing, you guys had to write 90 pages. Yeah. We're talking for a 1 hour episode, almost twice the amount of pages that you would write for any other shows. Because of the pace of our dialogue. So that's that had to be a real challenge for you guys, simply because, wow, how much of this is going to stay? We're at 90 pages. What are we going to lose here? And it ended up, we were usually within a couple of minutes of air, and we were rarely long.
Rarely ever long?
I can't say we were never long because I can't be sure, but I can say we were rarely over length. Mm-hmm. That we had to lose something at the end. Because if Glenn was happy with the show, network found a way to accommodate it, as long as we gave them a round number to use for commercial time.
Oh, well, I have something also to add. That, you have the censors, and if you write something and the censor, the network looks at the show and there's something in there they don't like, then they say you have to cut that. So we would figure out, ooh, they're going to want to cut this. So then you'd write something that was worse. And then then you would cut that. And then Glenn, we won. We would get what we wanted. He knew how to manipulate them.
Glenn would write hysterical jokes within he would write a really funny joke and then go to the gutter within 5 seconds while studio was still laughing. And a couple times we got through, as in when he came down the chimney. I forget the name of that episode. That line that he says when he lands in the chimney, the network could not believe it got on the air.
What's the episode before
That's the
Christmas?
last time I get myself caught in a place this tight with my clothes on. I think that was the line.
Yes.
And the joke before it made them laugh out loud that he got away with this one.
Wow.
We were shocked it went on the air, and you'd have to ask Glenn, but my guess is he got a phone call the next day about that. If not that evening.
Yeah, it was the
loved
Christmas episode. The Christmas episode was the episode before Christmas, the first Christmas episode. Yes. Was there ever any talk about getting them together earlier than, I'm curious, Maddie, in the third season? There were moments like in Money Talks, Maddie Walks when they go to the casino, or in Brother, Can You Spare a Blonde, when Richie is introduced. They're both great episodes. And, there were opportunities, or the episode when they go on a date, the symphony episode when they go to the symphony and the boxing. Was there talk, do you remember, of getting them together before that, and how they would get them together?
No. In the 80s, you didn't get the two leads together. Because then you wouldn't be able to play the sexual tension. And that is what people would come back for week after week.
Absolutely.
Was the sexual tension. So that was something we knew they would end up together. Well, we thought they would end up together.
Yeah.
And I have to say, even though I have story credit on that episode with Walter, I did not create the story or write it or anything. I have to tell everybody that. So yeah, no, it had always planned that they would get together. And I don't know what happened. I don't know what changed Glenn's mind, but I do know that, I've been reading comments on the Moonlighting, 21. And a lot of people said, well, I guess Glenn was mad at Sybil at that, Sybil at that point. But,
for me, us kids in post-production, we never thought we waited long enough. I was very afraid that tension you mentioned, that sexual tension would go away once they were together. And unfortunately, I think it did pretty shortly after that occurred. I think it was had an impact on the longevity of the show, because it finally happened. I have to believe, I don't know what Glenn's thoughts were, but I would tend to believe that based on everything that was happening, that the network had something to do with it happening when it happened. That's just, I think they really wanted it to happen. I really did.
Yeah. Glenn has talked in interviews, and he has said that he and Sybil were having a lot of problems, and the network, it was going to be either Glenn or Sybil. Somebody had to go. And Glenn went, I figured it would be Sybil. I created this and I'm writing all of this. And he was shocked when he was fired, taken off the show. He was absolutely shocked. So
networks make mistakes.
Yeah, definitely.
And that was definitely a mistake where the show is concerned.
Yeah. And it was a difficult time because, Bruce had done Die Hard. He was now more famous than Sybil, and she was pregnant with twins. That's exhausting. And under a lot of pressure and breastfeeding and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, it was a difficult time. for them.
Well,
And our shows took long to shoot anyway because of the number of pages.
Mm-hmm.
So, Sybil's being pregnant, and then after she had her babies, it just shortened our shooting days with her. And I know that created a little more conflict everywhere because it was about cost.
Yeah.
But
And
when she was on set, she was there. We just didn't have her as much as we would have liked to.
Yes.
And if you start watching, you realize that, one thing that I'm not sure what, I wish I could remember the name of the wonderful actress who came in and did an episode, and the overs with Sybil, when we were favoring the actress and not Sybil, we were using stand-ins to read lines to an experienced, extraordinary actress whose name, I'm sorry, I can't remember. And that became an issue for everybody. But we worked around it, and Glenn found a way, and the directors found a way to shoot it without the audience really knowing that was going on.
Well, I have another question on that. So did you know, like in the beginning of the third season, that it was in the story arc that there was going to be this trilogy, and at the end of it, Manny and David were going to consummate their relationship? Or was it kind of like a last minute thing towards the middle of the season?
I have no idea, because that's when I left. So, I mean, I was introduced to Mark Harmon. He was going to come in and play Sam, and I left because Sybil and Elise and I were all pregnant at the same time. And so I didn't want to be put under a lot of stress while I was pregnant. And, we were delivering some pages at 4:30 in the morning. And when I say deliver, we got in the car and drove to the studio to put pages, to put a script, on Glenn's desk at 4:30. We couldn't just hit send and then be at work the next day. So I just thought, I can't do this. I can't do this. So I think at one point I was scheduled to do another episode. And Carl didn't want to do it anymore. He went off and wrote a book and everything. And so they asked me to do it. And I said, okay, but I gave them my parameters, of when I can do it. And of course, they passed that. I mean, and I think I gave birth the weekend that, they wrote that script. So, and I also have a funny story. Well, I think it's funny. When I packed my bag to go to the hospital, Glenn gave us lovely gifts every year. And so we had a duffel bag, a maroon duffel bag that said Moonlighting. And so I packed all my stuff. That was my bag to take to the hospital. And I was in labor. I was in labor 46 hours, but it was very easy. I did 31 at home. It was just annoying. But the funny thing is, when I was at the hospital and trying to push and everything, everybody's asking me about Moonlighting and about Bruce and Sybil. And it's like, I don't want to talk about it right now. This is not the most important thing happening in my life at the moment.
That's pretty funny.
That must have been a little bit annoying, right? Just a bit.
A little bit, yeah.
And was the fact that Sybil was pregnant and that Bruce had broken his collarbone, did the network, do you remember if the network came to Glenn and said, look, we got to do this now, we got to get them together and have this happen now? Or, so you don't remember if that kind of pushed it to happen, or to do the arc with Mark Harmon? Or
no, that's when I left. So I know nothing about what happened. I just read about what was going on like everybody else.
Do you remember, Neil?
No, that wasn't something that reached us. We were busy, and I know Glenn took care of that because I'm guessing it was about limitations on Bruce for a while.
And that
but no, we don't know anything about how all that worked out. Basically, we were working on the show that we were working on until it aired. And, we had a rotation of editors, but we'd always help each other because we always had tougher schedules. And we could put the show together, but in order to make the changes, it was different. But I have to tell you, not just this episode, but one of the greatest times that we had was, people don't watch dailies together anymore, but we did every day in that screening room, and we never left without stomach aches from laughing, because Glenn just tore us apart for the half hour we were there. It was just hysterical. We didn't. I mean, I can't even repeat some of the things that went on, but he made those moments some of the best for us, because I loved going to dailies. No matter how busy I was on something else, I wanted to go sit in that dailies room, because I knew I'd come out with a smile that was going to get me through the whole day.
Oh,
That was really special. Really special. Gee, my grandson just threw something across the room, but nothing broke. We're good.
okay.
Do you remember if Glenn ever talked about, what his vision was for Maddie and David's relationship, if they ever did get together, what those stories would look like, what it would look like if they did try with their relationship? Do you remember it all? If that was discussed, like where that would go?
Mm-mm. No, I was gone at that point. That's something for Jeff and Ron and Roger.
Yeah. They
And
mentioned
Glenn was
it
a
actually
different kind
to
of,
us. Yeah.
Glenn was a different kind of creative. Things just came to him. It really wasn't about the clock and getting it in his head before 6 p.m. Things just came to him. And I'm sure there were days, because there were days when we got our pages, the actors got their pages while they were in makeup for that day. And I could see Glenn waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning and this stuff hitting him, because that was the kind of brilliance that came to him. These characters were in him, and he just found ways to bring the ideas of our wonderful writers one notch up regularly.
And I think David was Glenn's alter ego.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. I agree with that completely.
Yeah.
I completely get it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to meet Glenn briefly after we interviewed him when he had his office in New York, and just would be, talking to him for half an hour. I could totally see where David Addison comes from. Yeah, absolutely. He's so funny.
One of the most spontaneously funny guys around. He absolutely. People just wanted to hang out, because sometimes he would just go. It's like, here's a fun story. One time we're working on one of our shows, and Mel Brooks was editing one of his movies down the hall. And I keep the picture of Charlie Chaplin and the kid from the movie The Kid at the door of my editing room, because that was what I liked doing. And Mel Brooks saw this picture, looked in, and he stuck his head and he said, "Wow, can I come in and film?" He sort of said something. And I said, "Come on in." He went, "Sure." And he said hello. And I said, do you mind if I bring the crew in to say hi to you?
Wow.
And he said, "Sure." The whole editing team came into the editing room.
Oh.
And Mel Brooks had us the kind of hysterical that Glenn used to the entire time he was there. It was just one of those great moments that being on Moonlighting brought Mel Brooks into the editing room, and everybody got 30 minutes with another legend simply because we were working on Moonlighting. So
that's awesome.
It had a lot of residual benefits being around that, because again, it was just brand new, very different, and caught the appeal of everybody. And they did have Tuesday night moonlighting parties.
Yes.
Regularly.
Yes.
And I would have been at some of them if I wasn't working while we aired.
The same thing. I would have too. Oh, did you want me to show any of these other pictures?
Sure.
Because I don't know how much time we have.
We can run over a little bit. It's fine.
Okay. This is kind of funny. So this is Timothy Busfield, and he was filming Trapper John, and that's me. And in the back, right here with the hat, that's Bruce.
You want to bring it closer?
And he's just watching.
Okay,
he's watching us take a picture together.
That's great.
And then there's Glenn at the corner. And there's Bruce.
Yeah.
So I was talking to him about something. I wish I had gotten him and Sybil, autograph on my script, Oh, there's Imogene Coca.
I wish I'd gotten a photo with both of them.
Oh,
So cool.
Mark and I went out to dinner with her and Karen Weiss, the casting director. And we had the best time. It was just so great. And then after I had the baby, she was filming, and I went over to say hi at her hotel or whatever. She had a baby gift.
Oh, how sweet.
Sweet.
I got lucky and worked with her about a year or so after Moonlighting was over. Will McKenzie calls me, and he's doing a movie of the week, and Sybil was in it, and she was a producer on it as well. It was called Stormy Weathers. She played a private detective.
Oh,
so I actually got time with Sybil in the editing room.
That's cool.
Because she never came to the editing room on Moonlighting. But on this show as a producer, she spent some time in the editing room.
Oh,
well, that's cool.
There's a picture of Carl and me at right by the door to the agency.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's about it. There we are on our way to the Emmys. Yeah. So that's it.
Thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. And any other memories that you want to share? Anything that, that really sticks in your mind about working on Moonlighting? Anything else?
I don't think so. Do you, Neil?
No, other than the commissary was a fun place during that time. Because Miami Vice, I think, was shooting on the lot at the time. And one other show, we were all noticed, and the editors would sit together sometimes and have lunch and share stories. And that was a pretty fun time.
Oh.
Because we kind of shared intimate things about what it was like in our cutting room as opposed to theirs. What were their schedules like? Like how many people had voices on their show? All those, things that we talked about because it would gauge whether or not I was going home for dinner or not at all.
Mm-hmm. Well, I do have one kind of fun story. Bruce's brother, who's named David, was a production assistant on the show. Oh. And when I was leaving, he said to me, I have to tell you, you're one of my favorite writers. And I'm going, oh, thank you. And he said, because you always got your own lunch. So.
Well, I got to tell you, one of the good things about all the hours we put in, they fed us well.
Good.
Glenn made sure that we ate well. No matter how late we were there, nobody went hungry. We were tired, but nobody went hungry.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah, we were well cared for.
Did you guys keep anything from the set or anything? Do you remember from Moonlighting?
I didn't take anything from the set, but I do have my jacket, my Moonlighting jacket. I still have my duffel bag.
The red jacket, right. My son has mine.
Yeah. Your son?
My son has mine, yes.
Oh. Did you take anything, Neil?
No. I don't know why. I never thought of it. I was new to this world, so I didn't think of keepsakes. I just had the enjoyment of being on the show that got noticed and had a nice run early on in my career.
I think it's become more popular with eBay, and that's a lot more available now, and with social media, like it's more common, I think, for actors and writers and editors, creative people to take mementos more now.
Yeah. More aware of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the unfortunate occurrence for Bruce brought the show to the forefront again. I think there's been a lot of conversation. A lot of us were wondering, why has Moonlighting not been rerun or streamed? Because it is so special. And we know that there were some things in music because we did not buy music in perpetuity. If people don't understand it, so you can buy music for minimal usages, or you can pay in perpetuity, which means it's forever in that show. and there's an obviously noticeable difference in cost for those two. And we didn't get to do the in-perp on a lot. So I think there was a lot of conversation about whether or not the streaming services would spend the money to bring the show out, because Glenn, you know, when he picked a song, it wasn't an obscure one. It fit beautifully, but it was something that was known and, you know, extended the moment emotionally and otherwise. But then Bruce getting sick, unfortunately, brought this back to it, because this was the beginning of an extraordinary career. This guy was something.
Yeah.
And just remember that Die Hard was David Addison in another atmosphere. They took that character and used it brilliantly.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's the driving force behind all this, sadly. And because, you know, the show wasn't available to stream or digitally all these years, and all these other shows have been. And so this finally, unfortunately, pushed it. And thank you to Glenn, because he's the one who really kind of worked with Disney and to get the show finally released streaming and digitally. So it's a catch-22, because some of the music, you know, got cut out, unfortunately, but at least
Minimal
more
impact.
people can see it.
The show is great, even if you change some songs, because most people won't remember most of the songs at certain moments.
I totally agree.
I can. If I was to watch all the shows, I'd notice some of them that, oh, wait a minute, we did that different, just because the mood would be adjusted. But it just accentuated the moment. The music didn't make it, because the film just had it there. Anytime one of the two of them was on screen, we had interest.
Totally. I totally agree. And actually, today is a special day, because today is the first day of the launch of the show going digital. So it's available on all sorts of platforms. It's available to purchase and rent on iTunes. And so now it's even more people are going to be able to enjoy it and see it and remember it and discover it. So
good.
It's an exciting time for Moonlighting.
Yeah, it's a great memory for us.
It is.
Thank you, Debra. Thank you, Neil. This was an absolute pleasure. Thank you for doing this interview for the fan community. Thank you.
Well, thank you. This has been fun.
Yeah, thank you. Definitely enjoyable.
Thank you.
Be in touch, Debra. We'll get together soon, hopefully next week.
Yes. Okay.
All right.